Hi peeps, it's that time of year again. This is the highly requested winter's deck favorite list. So I'm going to talk about the decks that I have been working with the most right now and kind of just share why they're feeling like they resonate this January of 2023 for me. I'm going to start kind of with an honorable mention that I really did not think was going to be on this list. Yeah, I really didn't think it was going to be on this list. It is snowing out right now, if you can see in the window back there. We have had yet another school cancellation because of the snow. It's just been an interesting January. In some ways, it's like it's warmer than usual. And then we just keep having these like random days with snow, but then we lose all the snow because of the temperature changes. There's just been this like really big fluctuation temperature wise. And I tend to always talk about the weather when I'm doing these seasonal decks because my spiritual practice as a solitary left-hand path witch is very much related to the seasons and to where we are in the wheel of the year seasonally. And it's just been such a strange winter this year here in New England, and I think it has me in this very like in between space, feeling very in between, maybe not fully committed to the energy of winter as its slumberous hole, and yet also really feeling called to be in that hermit energy of withdrawal. So I don't know, it's a strange time as far as the elements go and the weather goes, and that's definitely affected what's here on this list. So honorable mention is, I hate that I'm doing this, but it's the truth, is the Spirit Animal Oracle by Colette Reid. I've really been feeling less and less drawn to work with specific decks of hers over the last few years, but I do have to say that if you let go of the guidebook and you just work with her decks intuitively, they're really great decks to clarify tarot decks. So, you know, as much as I may not love the artwork and I'm really not into Hay House in general anymore, I do think her decks have worth and value, and that's why a lot of them have not been donated over the years, as much as they're not a deck that I feel like is like synonymous with my energy as a reader. So what I have found over the last few weeks, and then why it's honorable mention is because it's more been in client readings, is that this deck has come forward to offer clarity on medium readings, offer signs for clients who are looking for something to be able to connect with their loved one who's passed with. This has come forward as a deck that's really powerful that way. And then when it comes to the divinatory aspect of readings, if you have trained shamanically at all, you're probably familiar with general animal spirit meanings and symbols. And so this deck is a really great marker for, like, if you're familiar with what squirrel energy represents as an animal totem energy, and then you're clarifying a tarot card with this deck, it really does that very beautifully and very simply, so that it can be a really quick clarification when it comes to the divinatory aspect of a reading. So I have actually been pulling this deck out quite a bit, and yeah, and working with her for clients specifically, not really personally for myself, but for clients specifically. Yes. So this is the Animal Spirit Oracle by Colette Reid, and that has honorable mention for really having come forward to work with especially medium readings for me when it comes to my clients over the last 2 months. But like I said, specifically that deck over the last few weeks. But this video is based on really what I've been working on in December and January. And like I said, I have this like in-between energy going on for myself personally, and the energy feels in between to me. I feel like it's the space of between realms, between worlds, and like what happens in that in between. So next, so let's get into the actual list then. Let's see. Oh, yes. All right. So I'm going to go to the Phantasma Tarot by Paulina Faye. One of you very lovingly gifted me this deck quite some time ago. And you know, when you have that feeling of like, I really like this deck, but I'm not feeling called to work with it right now, but I know we're going to have our time. That's how I felt about the Phantasma Tarot by Paulina Faye. That it was something that I was not going to gift or donate because I knew there was going to come a time where she and I were going to work together. And I was having a conversation with another friend of mine recently. We were talking about working with the Paulina Tarot. And I was like, you know, I've really been kind of feeling her call. So I pulled her out. And I've been using her personally and in readings for clients. And I love that feeling. You know that feeling when you've been working with tarot for a while and the artwork just resonates so beautifully. And this is, I'm really, really feeling this. And I think it has to do with some of the playfulness of Paulina's imagery. And listen, when I first started this channel back in the day, I was in love with the Paulina Tarot and the Joie de Vivre Tarot. And there's so many videos back in the day, even before I was pregnant with Vincent, where I'm talking about working with that deck, those decks, excuse me. So I love her artwork, but I really wasn't drawn to the Spirit Animal Tarot she created. I'm sorry, Spirit Song Tarot. And so I don't know, sometimes I feel connected to her work and sometimes I don't. And right now happens to be one of those times, kind of with this in-between energy, where I do feel really connected to the spirit of her artwork. I like that this deck, I do apologize, you're going to hear a plow truck outside. There we go. I like that this deck isn't as heavy with tiny little details everywhere. Sometimes I want that and sometimes I don't. And right now I don't want a lot of heavy detail to have to sift through. But this deck has a little bit less of that, but it has a little bit more than Joie de Vivre to me. So it hits that sweet spot of Paulina's work. And the feel of this deck, the energy of this deck in general is very loving, and very almost like, how do I want to say this? It offers you a different perspective, but it does so very gently. It gently offers you another perspective. She isn't forcing a truth upon you or pushing anything on you. She just gently offers you another perspective. So this is the Phantasma Tarot, and this is on my list for this winter. I almost said fall. For this winter. I've really been enjoying working with her. Another deck that I've reconnected with is the Sacred Earth Oracle by Toni Salerno. This is another one that for some time I just was not feeling super drawn to. And I actually had an original edition that I gifted, and so I had to repurchase this deck last month in order to reconnect with her. And the cardstock is now matte. Now, I love matte cardstock, as you all know, but this is one instance where I do wish that I had my original that was more shiny as opposed to matte to work with these images. But I love the images in this deck. That's what it really comes down to. To be completely honest with you guys, I really don't use the guidebook. I don't reference it. Instead, I let this deck clarify tarot based upon the feelings I get and what I hear, see, feel when I look at this in conjunction with my tarot deck. So I really use this as a clarifier, and just, it's really about connecting to the artwork and the feelings that I get from the artwork itself with this deck. It's not really about, you know, the guidebook for me or what Toni's assignations for working with the deck are. There's one image in here I really love, but there are just these images that pull me in so much with this deck, and I forgot how much I love this deck. And I was like, why did I let this one go back in the day? But it's one of those things where it's very cyclical, much like the Phantasma Tarot, where I don't work with it all the time. It's only specific times. And I do find it tends to be when I'm in more of an earth element energy, more of a quiet space, that this deck, artwork wise, comes forward and wants to work with me. So here it is. This image is why I had bought the deck back in the day. And I do think I have a review up on the channel with this deck. The artwork is stunningly gorgeous. I do think it's a deck that has a very quiet, still voice, and that you really need to take your time to get to know, but it's a relationship that will pay off once you do that. Next on the list is the Murder of Crows Tarot. Guys, this one might as well just join Tarot of Vampires as a deck that's just a perennial favorite of mine. That's in my top 5 that I can't live without. In fact, if I were to do an updated top 5 decks that I can't live without, this one would probably now be like number 2 on that list. That's how special this deck is. It's so truthful, it's so honest, it's so upfront. I love the kind of dreamscape that you enter into in this card, and how much you feel like this deck becomes a partner in your journey. You know, the truth telling that this deck does, it's not out of unkindness. It's really it's only meant in order to help you. And so I know I love this deck so much, and I have actually for most of last year, I used this deck for daily draws. For myself, the last few months I've started using a different deck, which I'm going to talk about, but this deck is still one that I go to all the time when I have questions personally on my own path. You know, outside of readings for clients, which this deck is a great deck for, even though it doesn't come forward for everybody. But when it comes personally to my own practice, I love this deck because she's just so upfront and so straightforward, but does so with love. You know, but she's not going to sugarcoat something, because you need to hear the truth so that you can deal with it. And that's the energy of this deck. So it's really become like a best friend for me on my path. True Black Tarot here. I love this deck so much. This is another one that, like, over time, it's just grown on me. And oh, it feels so good. It's like the Witch's Tarot by Burning Paper Hearts. Every time I touch it, I'm like, oh, it's such a great, like, sensory experience. This deck is an indie deck. It is very expensive. I am not gonna lie to you about that. And, you know, I understand it's out of the price range for some people. I was gifted this deck by an old friend of mine, and I have, you know, been very careful to take care of it, and it's still in great shape. It's just a sumptuous, she's just a sumptuous, high-class, honest bitch. That's who she is. Like, this is another deck that's gonna just tell you the truth, and that, like, you almost like too intense. She's too intense to hang out with all the time, but when she shows up, oh yeah, it's real, and it's a good time, but it's real. Interestingly enough, I have been finding a little shift with working with True Black over the last few weeks with clients, is that she's really come forward for relationship readings, which, not that I wouldn't use her for relationship readings in the past, but I've been very surprised at how much she wants to talk about relationships and giving honesty and clarity around that. So this is the True Black Tarot again, and I've really been working with her, especially with clients, on my personal journey as well. But like I said, really around relationship arenas, which has not, she hasn't been the go-to for that for me over the years of my journey with her. But like, I'm really excited to see what it is she wants to say, and how she wants to assist people in really getting clear about our part in a relationship dynamic. So it's been fun to work with her in kind of a new way. I was like, whoa, she really wants to show up to do this relationship focused reading, and really had a lot to say. So True Black Tarot, been just blowing my mind in working with her in a slightly more nuanced way than I typically do. Like usually she's really great for general readings, but she's really been coming forward for relationship readings. Okay, I'm going to show this one, and then I'm going to talk about these three in a slightly different arena. So next is Woodland Wardens by Jessica Roux. Guys, I love this deck so much. I keep like falling more and more in love with her over time. She's just so freaking beautiful. She's so sweet, and she's really come forward as more of a clarifying deck than a straight up like spirit animal deck to identify what animal energy you're currently working with on your path, if you bring that type of energy into your spiritual practice. She loves to clarify other decks, and she really gets down to the heart of the matter. So if I'm trying to look at something that's going on underneath the surface of an experience for a client, she really likes to come out and talk to offer clarity around that, which is like, I'm like, I bow to you. This is such a versatile deck. If you're someone who isn't able to or doesn't want to have a huge collection of decks, but you want an animal themed deck and a plant themed deck that brings like that green hearth witch energy to your life, this is a deck. I would say this is an oracle deck you can get and have that experience and use it in multiple ways. It's really, 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 I'm gonna stop on this one because that's one of my favorite images. It's really, really versatile, eloquent, present, and very much offers clarity and strengthening to messages that are meant to come through in a reading. So that's the Woodland Wardens Oracle by Jessica Roux. I thought I had done a review on this deck on the channel, but one of you said that I hadn't. So I'm going to research that and do either a full review or an updated further down the path video with this deck, because some of you have asked me to just share a little bit more about my experience with her. And so I am going to do a dedicated video for her. So the next decks on my list are, well, they've all been used in client readings except for one. But I've specifically been working with these guys personally on my own path in regards to embracing sacred sexuality again in my journey. So as part of when we're exploring bringing harmony to our sexuality and our sensuality as being innately spiritual, there's going to be shadow work that comes up around healing those wounds that we have around shame and our physical body and sexuality as an expression of spirituality. So, and as many of you know, I was raised in a very cultish, strict religion. And so my journey of healing from that kind of inculcation of these very misogynistic and very much shame-inducing teachings around pleasure and the physical body and the experience of being human in general is a lot of my own personal practice revolves around healing that and bringing integration and groundedness, right, to my own personal journey with that. So these decks have been really helpful for me. This winter, I've really been very much in hermit mode, spending a lot of time alone with my son, and my personal spiritual practice has been really important to be like really in the trenches with that. And so these decks have really helped me with that. And they've also helped me when it comes to shadow work for clients. So Mausolea of Souls and the Dark Mirror, I'm going to kind of show together because they hold a similar space in how they've been assisting. So both of these decks really coming forward to help with shadow work. But the Mausolea Oracle of Souls, which I know I need to do a full review of, several of you have reminded me of that. I know, guys, I'm on it. It's on the list. This deck has really been very helpful for me in healing the sacred masculine. and looking at shadow wounds around active sacred masculine energy within ourselves and on our journey. And it's come forward to work with clients a lot around shadow aspects that have to do with wounds around the sacred masculine. I know it's a very inclusive deck that has sacred masculine and sacred feminine representation, so I'm in no way saying this is just a sacred masculine deck, but it's really come forward to offer healing and integration around the sacred masculine and what it's like to embrace the active protective aspect of ourselves in a healthy way as we go forward on our path. The journey of healing and understanding ourselves and stepping into authenticity is never over as long as we're in a body. So, you know, I've been on this journey, this healing journey, this personal spiritual journey for well over 15 years at this point on my path, and I'm still doing this work at very fundamental levels. So this is one of those decks that's really going to help you get into the dirt and the grit of things and really look at things honestly. So that is Mausolea, Oracle of Souls. Like I said, really works for the sacred masculine and healing shadow wounds around that. Dark Mirror has been more of a general, get right straight to the heart of the matter shadow work deck. Just straight up, like sweet, short, to the point. The guidebook for this is one that I would recommend working with. It brings up some interesting things and some jumping off points for journaling that maybe you haven't noticed for yourself. It helps you to kind of go a little bit deeper than maybe you want to go in your shadow work so that you can really get the most out of it. And I highly recommend it for shadow work and a clarifying deck to tarot, especially when it pertains to shadow and, you know, the darker side of things. Okay, next deck is the Ritual Tarot by Tiera. You guys know, I'm not even gonna lie to you, I've been totally obsessed with this deck. Freaking love this deck. Love everything about it. She goes with me like everywhere right now. I just really, really love this deck. It's really more so than a shadow work deck right now. For me personally, this deck has really been an assistant in understanding the full-bodiedness of myself and my experience and my energy in general and what I'm bringing to the table versus what I want to bring to the table and how I can honor and care for this vessel in this physical experience and allowing and stepping into and embracing more of each moment being a spiritual experience as well. So it's just, oh my, plus it's just like, she's a fleshy, hedonistic deck. She's just delicious. Like I love this deck so much. I really do think it's an indie deck. I know it's an investment, but I think it's actually really worth the investment. And I fucking love this deck. There's just no other way to say it. I highly recommend working with it if you're in more of a shamanic mode, if you're in more of a expansive, experiential place and you want to like mix things up. And also if you're really trying to connect in and get in touch with the emotional, physical experience and offer yourself presence, healing, and integration around that. Like I said, this is one of the decks that I've been working with for myself as part of harmonizing my sacred sexuality and my work as a priestess here on this planet. So, Ritual Tarot, amazeballs, freaking love it. Okay, the next deck is new and I'm still getting to know her. So I have not used this deck in client readings to date, but this is the Compendium of Witches Oracle. I did a reveal on the channel recently, and this has really been about claiming the crone energy. Now I know that there's more representations than just crone energy in this deck, but I've really been tapping into the wisdom, the solitary energy that comes with crone time, and also the empowerment and the deep sensuality that comes through in this deck as well. Now, of course, when I use sensuality, I'm not saying it was a deck that got me worked up. That's not sensuality. See, this is so much a part of what I'm trying to heal personally and feel like I would like to, at the end of my life, be able to say I was a part of healing collectively as well. Sensuality is not just about like I don't know, getting off, right? There's a sensuality that comes to presence in each moment when you're really living fully and wholeheartedly in that space. And I really feel like this deck holds the crone aspect of that. Yes, there's definitely maiden and mother representation too, but I feel like this deck really holds the crone aspect of that power and energy. Really, really beautiful. That it is empowering and sexy. This deep well of wisdom and magic and power that women access as they get older. There's something really special about that, and I really feel connected to that in this deck, as well as the energy of when we walk a path of witchcraft, however we explore that for ourselves, just how each and every moment is imbued with that spiritual as well as physical aspect, and how sacred our tools and our familiars are, and the way in which we teach and share. And this deck really holds that space very, very beautifully. I have two decks left. I've been very chatty today. I'm going to try to really quickly get through this one so I can talk a little bit more about the last deck on the list. This is the Laidem Oracle. Yeah, I've been using this a lot the last few months. Like, I think this was in the fall list as well. I can't, like, this deck just gets better with time. This is like True Black and Woodland Wardens, where you're just like, oh my God, you are fucking amazing. This deck is amazeballs. I love this deck so much. It's so good for being honest, especially around shadow aspects for ourselves, but also just like things that maybe we're not seeing, right? It's very, very upfront. It's one of my favorite decks to clarify, especially if someone's at a crossroads at their life, or they're trying to figure out their purpose for being here, and they're trying to make choices about moving in the next direction for them. This deck is always going to be just really, 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 really honest. I love, as you can tell, I love honest decks, and this is one of those decks. So this is the Laidem Oracle by Lucy Cavendish and Jasmine Becca Griffith. At long last, we are at my #1 deck this winter. Now, I want to have a disclaimer before this because it's necessary these days. This is an indie deck. It's pricey. If you buy it with the grimoire, it's even pricier. I understand it's an investment. After a lot of research and speaking to a friend of mine who owns this deck, I made the choice to invest in the deck. I do not regret the choice at all. I don't regret investing in the grimoire either. That being said, it's very pricey. It may not be accessible for you right now. Me including this as #1 on my list does not mean that you need to purchase it. If anything, just enjoy looking at the artwork if you're not called or able to purchase the deck at this time. But this deck has been like a game changer for my personal practice right now, because it's, I should say, and it's the Nameless one by Zia Hunt. And I included this deck on a previous favorite seasonal list. It may have been fall or late summer, I can't remember. But I finally have had the time in my personal practice to devote 30 to 45 minutes with this deck each morning. Thank goodness I love getting up early in the morning. And this deck has, so I want to say so many things. I haven't posted a review of this deck because I know it's not accessible for everyone, and I don't want anyone to feel alienated on the channel. I'm sitting with if I will do a review this year on the deck because it's so special. But anyhow, it's a 78 card. There's 78 tarot cards, but then there's I can't even remember when I don't have the guidebook up here. There's a large amount of oracle cards that are included. Each card has its own sigil, and if you purchase a grimoire, each card has several pages of information on symbolism, color choices, what's in the card, how you can bring it into your witchcraft practice, and if you're going to use the sigils, what you should use the sigils for in ritual. So it's a deck that very easily requires the time to get to know it. If you're going to work with it and you really want to get to know the deck, like you kind of have to work with it with the guidebook in order to understand the oracle card meanings and to know what's an oracle card versus what's your straight up tarot deck system. So Zia Hunt says, of course, that you can use it as just straight up just for sigils. You can use it as an oracle deck. You could use it as a tarot deck. So there's many different ways to work with the deck, but for me, I made the commitment to myself that I was going to get to know the deck completely before I use the deck in readings. And that it was really about a personal journey for myself. And so learning a new oracle system and really like dedicating myself to understanding her oracle deck choices here in this deck and how it's gonna play out as I interpret that in a reading has been just so much fun. It's been so much fun for me. And it's been so like reinvigorating with my card practice, and personally for myself, it's been very thought-provoking, and it's inspired a shit ton of journaling. Like, I am a big journaler anyhow, but I've just gone through a lectern. I know I'm saying the name wrong, but the type of journal that I prefer and that I've used exclusively since 2017. I've gone through an entire one of those in like 2 months. And it's like, they're like almost they're 300 or 400 pages long. So yeah, this deck has inspired a great deal of journaling, personal, exploration, and really really getting down into the personality of this deck. So if you're looking for a deck that you can go on a journey with, that can become a best friend, but that requires dedicated study, this is a beautiful deck for that. It's an investment, and there's a time and a place. Even when I first purchased it, I knew I was too busy to work with the deck at that point in time. Now I'm at a place where I have a little give in my schedule in the mornings, and so I'm able to devote the time for this practice with this deck. But I would just say, if you're going to purchase this and you want to get your money's worth, you do have to be willing to put the time in to get to know the deck, because she does not have titles or numbers on these cards. So if you're really going to work with this in a way that's in alignment with, in my opinion, if someone's investing in a reading, I need to know the decks that I'm bringing to the table. And if you want to provide that type of work for yourself and or clients, you need to spend the time to get to know this deck. It will be worth it, but it does require that investment of time and energy. The cardstock, it's like, it's insane. I love the cardstock. I love that it's all black. So much about this deck is just right up my alley and speaks to my heart. I am super in love with this deck right now. I'm super smitten with her. Since the beginning of December, I've been working with her exclusively every morning for myself, as I said, and I've just really enjoyed the investment in my personal health and well-being from a spiritual and mental perspective and emotional perspective that this deck offers. So the Nameless one is at the top of my winter favorites because of how much she brings to the table. I do not regret my purchase. I'm really lusty and just giving all the vibes to this deck right now. So this is my winter 2022 to 2023 deck list. I know how much you guys enjoy these videos, so I'm honored to be able to do them. If you've hung out with me for this long and made it all the way to the end of the video, I appreciate you so much. I am, as always, sending you all so much love. I hope as you're exploring getting to know yourself in a new way as we step into the beginning of 2023, you're feeling inspired, encouraged, empowered, and that you're able to know that you're not alone on your path. As always, guys, much love, many blessings, and I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.